everyone. Welcome to our session. I'm Georgia Kuyalis, a senior solution data scientist in Dataiku. But for today, I'm a data scientist for the Fenway Group in charge of internal operations and data-driven communications. And here's my colleague.
Hi, I'm Valentina Peña, also a senior data scientist here at Dataiku. But for the purposes of today, I am also a data scientist at the Fenway Group, but I work with the teams who plan our external events. Now, I want to tell you a story about something that happened to us a couple weeks ago. We were working on planning for the Fenway Craft Beer Fest, one of our biggest events of the year. It's something that we monitor online trends for. We make sure that we're tapping into what people are drinking, what people are excited about, so that we can prepare to have the right vendors on site and figure out the correct prices for our event. Now, everything was going swimmingly until we got this big red alert on one of our internal systems telling us that those trends that we had been tracking were all of a sudden thrown off kilter. Now, I took a little bit of time to go online and figure out what might have been driving that. And I found this one tweet leading us to the culprit. An interaction between Sam Adams, the brewery, and Sam Altman, coming up with the idea to launch EAI, a new beer that none of our trend predictions could have ever prepared for. Now, everything went great at the event, but given the timing, I now have to put together a recap deck for our exec leadership so that we can plan and look forward. And that's why I wanted to bring in my colleague Georgia today, so that she could help me figure out the best way to tell that story and really come home with a punchline.
Yeah, you saved the event, Valentina. It went great, but now I'm very curious to see, how did you come up with the analysis and you made it and put the beer on our production line at the last minute, and of course help you to decide what we're presenting to our execs, because we need to verify our last minute change.
Absolutely. So the first thing that I did was go to our control center, which is really where we can track everything regarding all of the planning that we've been doing. And this is kind of a central hub where our teams can come in, check important dashboards. You'll see that there's even a couple of data sets that have really the core information that we're looking to put out and tap into, and even that deck that we've been going back and forth in. So all of this can be hosted in one place. With one click, I can go into the dashboard that was really what I led to that first day that I saw the trends shifting. And what this gave me a glimpse into was indeed the tweets that were coming up, which, as you can see, Sam Adams, EAI, really all over the place. So we were getting important information. Also some metrics here, which a little bit small, but basically what they say is that our weekly metrics in terms of beers and breweries being talked about were what we expected. Same for the beers. That one in orange is how many people were talking about Boston. Super important so we could figure out head count. And the last one was the new trends that were emerging. Deep, bright red. Now that tracks. Looking at this graph that we have here below, this is where we figure out how our trends are tracking against a threshold. What we had planned was something like maybe 3 emerging new trends a day. But instead, we were up in the 9s in a single day. That was really not something that we were prepared for. Looking at this quick word cloud that we have up here, Sam Adams and EAI really taking a huge chunk of the market and the conversation going on online.
I see. I mean, it's pretty clear, Valentina, that something happened with the events. Sam Adams, EAI, around the web. But obviously we need to provide some more numbers and justification on why we took this decision. Do we have any other tools that we can check the numbers based on the data behind the scenes?
Absolutely. So I also built a little web app that interfaces directly with the data that all of these analyses are sat on top of. So maybe we can ask something about the most common brewery coming up in our tweets?
Yes, let's check that. Also, how did you build this web app? Are you a developer too?
You'd be surprised. Dataiku makes it super easy. With the click of a button, you can essentially build something, point it to a data set, and spin up this whole web app, which easily can be interacted with by anybody. So as we'll see in our results, Sam Adams is coming up as one of the top breweries in the data. And this little Use Snowflake button at the bottom is what's telling you it's tapping directly into our database. So it really is the raw data feeding into this. Anything else you want to know?
Yes, I want to see a number. How many tweets we had around Samuel Adams and EAI?
Awesome, let's check that. All right, let's see what it comes up with.
But that is pretty cool. I will definitely use it on top of other data to get to ask questions and help our stakeholders to find out answers here.
Yeah, absolutely. Once this is done, we can also check the sources, which really cool, lets you know what the SQL query going on under the hood is. So lets you validate that you are actually fetching all that data straight from the source. So you'll see here, we have 27 tweets mentioning that. This is just for one day. So really, that is quite a chunk, and it's not even counting retweets.
I see. That's definitely a good amount of number for unique tweets. OK, I mean, I'm convinced. But to decide exactly what we want to share with our stakeholders, can I see the project? Or how did you work on that? I need to get my hands on something.
Absolutely. Let me pull it up, and you can dive in.
Oh, yeah. Here we go. Nice. So we have the Dataiku flow. That looks pretty clean. And I see no code recipes, which between us, it makes it much easier for me and my team to follow your logic of processes here without having to decode your hard Python stuff, girl. But
even though I built it, she can figure it out.
Input data set. You mentioned that you scrape the internet with your team and you input a lot of tweets, which is lengthy text with some information for us to understand the trends. Also, first thing, it seems here that you connected to the database of your preference, which is a great way to leverage computational resources from wherever your data sit. That's a good one. And then moving forward, I see that you used one of the LLM recipes that we have integrated in our workflow here. I find it so cool how Dataiku has established all these connections into various generative AI services. And as now, we can use large language models in order to apply operations as prompts, classifying text, sentiment analysis, summarization, and much more. But let's go inside the recipe and see what you did here. Here we go. I find it always easier to open the prompt where we do design and testing, and pretty much all the magic happens. In terms of the prompt, I see that you given the instructions that you're a helpful assistant, classifying the tweets, and you want to extract information about the brewery, the company, or the name of the beer. So then we could make sure that we have enough references to the beer of our interest. You used one of the data sets, your input data set that you processed in Dataiku, which is very easy to use any of the data sets that you have in the flow. And also, you specified which column has the tweets. That is all great. The other things that the platform provides here is that you can test different tweet text and also see the results. And that is great because obviously, we need the human to be in the loop and check anything before we deploy this in production or back to the flow. I see that the cost, what I love about this is that we get an estimation of the cost, because obviously we don't want to let this run and go wild. 96 cents per 1,000 records. Yeah. That can scale pretty fast if we have a million of records. But we have the option to choose any other model. Let's see, if I choose a model that is a little less advanced, cost is significantly less, but you know something? We have a big budget. I am not sacrificing performance here. It's OK. I'm going back to the flow. We're using this model. You did a little more of data pre-processing, and then you have another LLM recipe. But let me open this here and see what you did. Oh, OK, it makes sense. We extracted the beer, the name, and the company. But what matters to us is whether that was a signal for a trend, and whether we need to include this on our event, or if it was the opinion of someone, it's a hot weekend out, and I'm having this great beer, because these are two different things for us to take into consideration. Great. So then the output of this is whether the tweet is signaling or not a potential event. And here's your final data set. Is this, Valentina, what you used for your answers plugin?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oops.
And on top of that, you saw those alerts that we had earlier. If you navigate to our scenarios, you can also see how I built all of that automation, which essentially is constantly integrating, monitoring, and then has a way of sending us pings to let us know real time through any of our notification systems, kind of like Slack.
Let me check the scenario then, too. So yeah, as Valentina mentioned, like scenarios are used for these like automation of processes. You set a trigger on a daily basis because obviously like we want to check like the news every day, the tweets, if some even new trend comes up. And then we have a reporter. I mean, we use Slack all the time, so that was a good pick. But how that works is like, so my understanding, Valentina, is based on a threshold that you set on your metrics and checks about the potential like trends, which was like this number that we saw, the 3 on the line. Suddenly that has exceeded it. So then you got the notification in the morning in a state of emergency to save the event.
Absolutely.
Oh, wow.
So much easier than having someone actually live monitoring social media. You can just focus on more important work and wait for that ping to come in.
That is pretty cool. And you know, it's amazing how far the technology has come with using large language models. There is like tools like Dataiku right now, where with few clicks and visual recipes can really help us to like stay on top of competition and leverage new opportunities, as opposed to back in time that we were extracting events and information from the news by hand, manually. And how far you can go with like all the news and the speed of information that we receive today. But with LLM, you made it for the event. One last thing that I see here, before we go back to the exec text, you use the machine learning visual recipe as part of like pricing. What did you do exactly there?
Yeah, if you zoom in a bit, you can see that some of the input data sets are of historical sales and also historical beer prices. And we trained a predictive model on top of them to help us predict sales going forward into the future. So we can use those features of things we've seen in the past to set prices optimally moving forward, or at least understand how things might sell.
I see. Okay, one thing at a time. Let's go back to our stories and our presentation to add the right information and graph about why we included the beer. And then I started thinking that maybe we should put this in our production line moving forward, one by one.
Good call. Where do we start?
How about we give them like a graph about the top 10 breweries or companies, and then another graph in the form of a pie chart maybe about the top 10 beers in our trends.
Sounds great. So in Dataiku's new story functionality, you can use what we call our story AI. And this helps you be able to describe visualizations that tap into your live data directly and creates visualizations based off of plain English descriptions. So in this case, as Georgia mentioned, we're going to ask for one bar chart with the top 10 most retweeted brewery or beer producers, and also a pie chart that tells us a little bit more about the individual beers that are getting that market share currently. So this takes a little bit of time to speed up and stand up as it is fetching that data and then figuring out the right charts to produce. But you should be able to see, hopefully this one might turn into a pie chart for us, but if not, there you go. It's giving
well,
me a link.
Here we are. Okay.
So definitely much faster than an analyst having to fetch the right data, figure out the right data type, and make all those filters that they're looking for. Immediately, we can produce in a couple of seconds those really valuable visualizations where Sam Adams, as expected, really is our top brewery or beer producer, and same for IPAI, getting the vast majority of the share.
And what is great about stories, actually, is that if next week, let's say, we have new tweets and Guinness, I don't know, and AI produce a new beer, all of these will be updated. Like, as the flow is updating with data, that will update the presentation, too. So we don't have to, like, manually go and recreate graphs.
Plus the additional benefit of never having to leave Dataiku.
Exactly.
Saves so much staying in one tool.
That is definitely a cool tool. Okay. Next idea is that how about we start thinking of ways to convince our execs to put this IPAI into our production line for the rest of our events.
That's
you have any process of thinking with your data science, their tools and functions on how we can do that?
Yeah, so I've been thinking about that a little bit. And luckily, I do have some dashboards that tap into those beer trends that we've been talking about that feed into that model we showed in the flow. And we've been looking at kind of how the prices fluctuate over time, maximums and minimums, how it changes by beer type. So you'll see that for our IPAIs, it's a little bit higher than others, max out somewhere around $9.75. We also have some insights into how it is divided in terms of the different breweries and how those sell, plus those trends across days of the week and months of the year. I also have an additional part of my dashboard that taps into that model overview of what we have in the flow. The most important bits really are the feature importances, so what is helping us drive those predictions of what is going to sell best, and my personal favorite, the what-if analysis here on the bottom that lets you essentially play with your features and do scenario planning. So for example, here we're working off an IPA, right, IPAI, and temperature is 63, but let's plan for the end of Q4, where temperature's going to drop a little bit in Boston. So let's nudge it down a smidge. And you can see that that actively updates the prediction for quantity sold on that beer and also updates the most influential features. So we'll see that type of beer and day of the week really is getting the maximum impact on figuring out how that might sell going into the future.
OK, that is great. And I'm happy that you took into consideration the temperature too as a driving feature, because for this last term, we really need to meet our targets, push that ROR. So now the other thing is that our execs probably they want to see some sort of pricing, potential profit margins, quantity in the market, which is a more complex optimization problem. So how would we go about this?
Yeah, so I actually do also have a little optimization web app that lets us tap in the type of beer that we're looking to price moving forward, and also the price range that we're willing to consider. I think building off of some of the insights from that previous dashboard, we can work with the ranges we've already seen. So let's set our minimum to 7 and our maximum to 9.75, and then we can give this a run and see what it says.
I would take a wild guess around $8, but so behind the scenes, what is happening exactly with this optimization tool here? What is the problem we're working on?
So as you can understand, profit is what makes the world go round. So we're trying to optimize for that. And profit really is a combination of how much you're selling, which is often itself driven by how things are priced or how appealing it is to consumers. So this does a full cross-analysis of every single potential price point, how that model would predict it would sell, and helps us highlight that optimal pricing point to get to that maximum profit value. Right now we can see that $8.25, you weren't too far off, is where we should be setting our price point.
That's great. Let's go back to our stories and include some information about, and giving to our execs some options, actually, because at the end of the day, they're the ones deciding the price.
Awesome. All right, so how about we create something like a bar chart that's going to be tapping into the results of that optimization and showing for the execs themselves how the different price points match up to the different profits we've seen. So I'm going to hop right back into the story AI, post our prompt about a bar chart that chops the top 3 maximum profits by price, and we'll see what it gives us. Ooh. Let's give it a moment to come back to us. Might have to try that again.
Let's go again.
Oh, there we go. Now it's thinking twice. Let's see what it does.
2 brains.
OK, awesome. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this one and expand the one we've got over here, so that we can all see that it's just by a hair, but that 8.25 does beat out the 7 and the 8, and honestly, we'll take every little bit we can get.
Of course. OK, one last thing. I have a suggestion. Why don't we create a little advertisement with the beer name and the price to really get them excited about this?
That's a great idea. I was actually thinking about that before, and as you'll see under our media tab, you have the cheeky little option to generate an AI image. I took the liberty of doing that earlier to save us a little bit of time, and we can see what our AI spat out so that we can present it to our execs and really sell them on the dream. So you'll see that we have a nice little AI-generated label that has that $8.25 price right there. LLMs aren't great at spelling. Let's not fault it for that, but hopefully we can still sell the dream. So execs in the room, what do you think? Do we run the beer for $8.25? Are we all convinced?
Want to get one? Thank you so much, everyone.
Awesome. And if you want to hear more about how we built this demo, we'll be down at the demo booths on the ground floor if you want to come find us. We'd love to chat.
Join us. Thank you.
Thank you all.